All right, so our motion tweening homework for this week is an animated spaceship. Depending on what semester you're watching this, there might be multiple spaceship files. You want the one where it's not rocking back and forth on its own. So if you zoom out, there it is. You want the one where if you play it or test it, the only thing animating is the fire. So that's already built in. Looks pretty cool. But we want to have, we want to use this and motion tweening. If you use a classic tween for like effects and things like that, that's fine. But we want to stick with motion tweening for the most part for the general animation. So if you're wondering what to do with your spaceship, I have a couple of examples I can show you from past student work. Give me a second to bring it over here. We can see the borders because of the way it renders, but that's okay. So this person just did a lot of like stuff with the geography, and it's just really amusing. I wish I could get it to be the right size to watch because it's, there we go. Oh my goodness. These Swift files that you preview, they're really good for previewing because they just happen so fast. Like you can just render them and it's real easy, but they're a pain to work with. So they just did one giant motion path. Not a lot of effects, but what's really cool is that they're dealing with the edge of the screen for a lot of humor. And the way they did it is just, that's what the path looks like. So that was that first thing, and then you can see it just jumps over the course of a few frames. It jumps around a lot, and it's just the one layer. But there's a lot of animation in that one layer. This is a bit longer because there's only one thing going on. Contrast that with something like this. So you're going to see some effects work basically, right? So it's shorter, but they've got kind of like a lot more animation. It's like scaling in and out. It's all this tremble. There's all these like little filter effects on there, and then that little starburst. So I can't say, oh, make it this many seconds long. I want you to just think of, a homework's worth of work to do basically, and however long you make it's like the density of the work. We're getting into spots where some things will be longer because there's less in them, and some things will be shorter because they're tightly packed. But make sure that you're putting all the animation like out here. Remember to make sure that when you set up your timeline, you turn on motion tweening first before you put any keyframes in. And remember, let me just put this here. So, oh, whoops, I broke it by moving it. There we go. You have to be careful sometimes when you putz around with a file. Let's see, create motion tween. There we go. There it is. The motion path should go between where the actual things are. Remember that you can alter a motion path just like it's a path because it is. And remember that you can orient things along a path. So if I use the free transform tool to rotate this a little bit, I can select the tween and say orient to path, and it will follow the path. Actually, I gotta unorient that for a second. You have to orient it to where it is on the path here. So you could see that it was pointing a little bit too far down. Go back to this. There we go. There it is. It looks like it's pointing in the direction that it's going. And you'll remember that it adds those keyframes there, so you have to turn it off. And that if you want to change the timing, really you have to use the graph editor. It is a bit dense, but essentially you can choose whichever thing is primarily changing. So this is mostly moving across. So I look at the X graph, and the flatter the graph, the slower it's going. It's actually going down a little bit there because it's moving backwards. And then the steeper the graph, the faster it's going. So if I want this to speed up as it goes, I need to do this, right? I need to tilt it down. I need to sort of pull this out so it's slower, and then it speeds up. Actually, I did that too much. If you have something that's vertical like that, it will be so fast it won't work. It'll break. There we go. Orient path. It did speed up, but it's also taking way too long. So the other thing we can do, turn off orient path for a second. If I hover over the edge and I get those 2 arrows, I can scale the whole animation down. There it is. It's a little bit faster. That's nice. And of course, it makes so much more sense if that you can move the whole thing if you want to. But if I go to the last keyframe, this thing is very picky about where you click. There we go. In general, because it's speeding away, it just makes more sense to have it, fire off screen basically. And how drastically it does that depends on how much you pull the graph editor around. But it's up to you what you do. For this one assignment, I believe I specified online, but let me double check. For this one assignment, you can pull a background from online because I want you to focus on the animation. If you want to make a few like really quick asteroids, which by the way do have to be on separate layers, if you want to grab the polystar tool and pull that out in like real quick, round the edges or something. I'm not, what button are we doing? There we go. That's fine. Just like, don't take forever sculpting it, right? Just make a few little quick asteroids and call it a day. Don't be designing a background. Don't be designing like huge alien spaceships. The focus of this assignment is the animation. You should be spending almost all of your time up here in the timeline adding keys or setting keys, changing timing down here, changing the path using, let's see, turn this off for a second. There we go. Using this tool, retiming things. That is what your focus should be.